Welcome back to Sat Interviews live from ACSIS. Listen, it's been a great day so far. We've spoke to high commissioners, a lot of policymakers, business people. Now we have an intriguing opportunity to speak to someone who's running a social enterprise right here in London. I want to study and analyze what the impact of that work is towards the greater vision of collaboration between both communities within the Caribbean and Africa. Welcome, Ademola Adeyeba.
Thank you very much, Farai. Thank you for having me.
So you run an institution called 1,000 Black Boys,
Yeah.
social enterprise. Firstly, quite a provocative name. What inspires it? Why 1,000? Why not 2,000?
Great question. Great question. I can tell you the story behind it, but let me answer your question because I'm a spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
So before launching 1,000 Black Boys, I just saw a real need. And also my personal journey in London. So born in Nigeria, I came to London as a 9-year-old. And I had an uncle in Nigeria that said to me that the streets in London are paved with gold. Maybe people have heard that before, but in my brain as a 9-year-old, I took it literally. Like, this is, I'm looking forward to this. I think I remember thinking to myself, those people in London are really silly because I'm going to find that street and when no one's looking, I'm going to scrape some gold and we're going to go into business. Exciting. So I came to London and that wasn't why I got. The weather was a real hit because having grown up in Nigeria, I just expected everywhere in the world was the same in terms of temperature. So that was a real difference, but really massively got bullied for being the African boy in class, got bullied for my African name. And I got told this thing that you have an accent. I'm thinking, what do you mean? Like, what's an accent? And they said, well, the way that you talk and the way that we talk, that difference is called an accent. And this was news to me. But I just knew as a 9, 10-year-old that, oh, this means bullying. So I got bullied in my, I'd say like 9, 10, early teens. And even in those early days, I'd say for me as a young person, very, very dark days. I attempted suicide twice in my early teens. Fortunately, thank God it didn't work. It could have been more, but I'm clear that my mind doesn't let me think if there was more than that. But I know there was definitely at least twice that I attempted it. 17-year-old, ran away from home, came very close to being stabbed on a bus outside of a college in a part of London. So it was very challenging in my early days. And then 19-year-old, went to university and I wasn't serious my first year of university. It was a real disaster. I was an hour and a half late for a 2-hour exam. Such was my level of focus at that point in terms of studying. And the reason why I share all of that is because it gives the context to 1,000 Black Boys and even also like why the name. But then I found myself in the world of sales and business as a 19-year-old, trying to make money to pay off my tuition fees. And I discovered things, Farai, that confidence makes you money, that being able to communicate makes money, that being able to deal with rejection. So you call somebody, they say, is this a sales call? You're like, yes. And they hang up on you. And then you deal with your, oh, I feel rejected, I feel really bad. What did I do wrong? But then if you go again, you actually get to progress. So all those things that for me, I never got taught at school, I learned it in the business environment. And it was a real eye-opener for me. So there was that personal experience, then the business experience. I grew really quickly within this industry, built lots of sales teams, made companies lots and lots of money. And then the third part is I got into the coaching field. I was trained by a very well-known company. And I became, I'd say, they say the most effective, but I'd say the #1 trainer for them in Europe, including Europe and Israel. I was the #1 out of about 400 or so people. And I went to another level where I was one of 4 in Europe, certainly one of 4 in the UK, maybe also Europe, and one of 200 in the world. And oftentimes I was the only Black person in the room. And I thought to myself, how did I get here? Look at this experience. What if we could give this to Black boys, young Black men that I see around me? I'm pretty sure they would be able to do incredible things. So I looked at that coaching experience, my business experience, and also my life experience. And that's what sparked us to launch 1,000 Black Boys. And in terms of the name, it was when I was working as a sales director, one of the guys in my team, there were many final straws. One of maybe like the final straw was when my nephew, I got a call from my sister and she asked me if I'm sitting down and she told me that my nephew had been threatened at school and that this boy chased him today and that he was running for his life essentially. And when I spoke to him, I asked him like, why were you running? And he said like I was afraid for my life. And at the time he was 11 and the boy that was chasing him was 12. So these were children. So I had that experience. And then about a week afterwards, my colleague at work had a similar experience with his nephew. And we're talking on the balcony outside our office. And I shared the vision with him for 1,000 for this thing that I've got, and he said like, I love it, like it will definitely work. And he asked me a question: what are you gonna call it? I had no name. Mouth just opened, and I just said 1,000 Black Boys, and I was like, that's a really good name. I never thought about that. So for me, it was a God idea. It's what God said. This is the name of it. Like, go with it. And in terms of 1,000, it ties into multiplication. It ties into acceleration. It ties into, someone even said earlier, like generational impact. Like it goes forward. It goes forward. So that's why we're called 1,000.
So even if you hit the 1,000 Black Boys, it's metaphorical. Right?
Yeah.
It's figurative,
Yes.
rather. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, what has been the impact so far, given the challenges within youth violence in London? And I prefer to frame it as youth violence, because certain times we may aid a stereotypical narrative, yet, violence between young males and females in communities happens all the time.
It does.
In Manchester, there are high rates there. They're still trying to deal with that, of course. Scotland was able to have a different approach from a community basis, and they had a huge amount of youth violence. I have the problem of the term yet, Black violence. Has that been your problem as well?
Yeah, we don't call it that. Right. Youth violence, it's a challenge that we know can be that can be transformed, but we don't refer to it as like, I don't know, black on black violence, wherever it is, because that's not the truth. That's not reality.
Right.
That's a perception. And our work is really, one of our work is really uncovering perception. So how do you separate perception from reality?
Right.
And then you deal with reality. So yeah, it's youth violence. It's unfortunate. It's potential being lost.
Well, so I'm glad we're together on the narrative.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, what has been the impact societal-wise in terms of the work you've done? How long you've been running for? How many sort of what is your modus operandi of engagement with the actual social group you're targeting?
Really great question. I mean, what I can definitely share is we launched in 2018, December 2018. I was sharing the vision with people, and people that loved the idea got on board. And we did our first event in 2019. And then 2020 for us was when it really took off. And that's when I realized that this is not just a side thing that I do while I work full time as a sales director. This is the thing, or one of the things that I need to absolutely go after. In that year, we reached between 6,000 and 10,000 people through our online events. And we calculated that about like 59% of them were 24 and under. And that's when I realized, whoa, there's a real need for this. This is a really big deal. And when we look at more recently, I was looking at some of our outcomes and our output actually this morning for something else. For us, so in terms of our engagement, we do that through events. We do mentorship programs. We do family therapy services. We have that. We have a TV show that we launched October last year on a channel. We're not going to take that onto our YouTube. And then it's not live yet. The fifth thing is a digital platform that we'd love to set up or be a part of, because we're clear that we're not here to solve everything. We can play our lane really, really well. Now, who's great at what they do? Let's partner with you to make a difference. Let's like this whole conversation. What this is all about collaboration. So who do we know that's strong at what they do? Let's partner together. Let's make a difference. So that fifth part is a platform where parents and guardians that need support can find the right support. Because there's many great organizations, but oftentimes their marketing is not very strong. They're good at what they do, but in terms of, hey, this is what we do, they're not strong at that. But if they solve that problem, then those that need them find them, and things transform. So those are our 5 pillars. And what I didn't share with you is our mission is really clear. So our mission is we exist to inspire Black boys and young Black men to unleash their potential and to live a life of purpose. And we say, as that happens, every single person benefits. Nobody loses in that scenario.
And I think this is important. So the reason I think it's important, more critically, and touched, by the way, by your personal story, your personal journey, experiences you've had in the country. I think it's a reflection of the society we're in terms of the divisions therein and the lack of deliberate application of policy in terms of thinking around how do we integrate these societies that are so divided. But there's something you've gone out and done. You've created an institution that sort of supports that. And I would imagine the many young Black folk that are, and now, if you fast forward, this probably happened maybe 16, 20 years ago. Fast forward in the present, I'm curious to see how the present popular culture of your Afro beats and now collaborated with the sort of reggae culture and also the being part of popular culture, people now understand the African story more.
Yeah.
And have you seen a reflection of a positive impact towards the very youth that you engage with, who perhaps would be in your current stage at the time you were considering the sort of decisions you're considering at the tender age of 11?
Yes, seen the impacts. So what Afrobeats has done is made it cool. It was always cool to be African.
Yeah.
But now other people. No,
really,
it was.
It depends.
It was always cool to be African.
Yeah.
I take it was always cool in terms of pioneers,
Yeah.
inventors, thinkers,
Yeah.
builders. Incredible.
No, I mean, yes, metaphysically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like now,
but in reality.
so especially like now in the West, because of Afrobeats,
Yeah.
like there's been times when I've been driving and somebody is playing Afrobeats in the car next to me, and I turn and it's not a black person.
Yeah.
It could be like an Asian person that's playing Afrobeats.
Yeah.
Someone else. I'm thinking that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So Afrobeats has shown the richness of our culture in a different way.
That's good.
And I always think about, well, I didn't have that when I was growing up. So it's different for those that are growing up now, that there's less, I see that there's less division between, I can be honest, you're from Africa, I'm from the Caribbean, let's fight. There's a lot more synergy.
Right.
There's a lot more ability to say, okay, cool, that's interesting. That's interesting. Like I like the beat, like 'cause I'm dancing to it. Let me find out more. There's still work to be done in certain areas, but that certainly make a difference because music impacts culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, music impacts culture and transcends division.
So I'm curious to see, because part of the work you do is, of course, in the creative entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
And so, are there any collaborations that you've been working on towards these, collaborating with both these communities, given the fact that your background is Nigeria, but centered here? How are you seeing a lot of collaboration between both the Caribbean and the sort of African community in that context, from a business material perspective?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, for example, yesterday I was in a part of London. We're looking at doing one of our inspiration empowerment events there February, March next year. And the focus of those events is, we've actually entitled it Entrepreneurship and Creativity Unleashed.
Right.
And the people that I was talking to in that area are predominantly from a Caribbean background. And we're all really committed to make a difference. So for us, it's about the purpose. That for the right people that we speak with, we don't see, oh, well, you've got an African background, I've got a Caribbean background. Like I don't see that anymore, not in this field. It's really much more about, well, where young lives are being lost, potentials are being lost forever, that can never be replicated. So let's go.
Do that, right. And any support from the, public institutions such as the police and so forth, the Parliament itself here in the UK with regards to the work you've been doing?
Not massively. We've spoken, or maybe they've approached us, or the police have spoken with us in the past. They've looked at some of the things that we do because they've seen our work. But nothing from a public viewpoint in that regards. We have been approached by a council in a part of London. There's a particular service that reached out to us in 2022, in fact, and they said to us that a lot of the people that go through our service are black boys. And the fact that you exist, the lady was pretty much crying on the phone. She's like, thank you very much for doing what you do. And I got emotional. Like, thank you very much for seeing what we do. She goes, and they were asking us, would you consider doing your work in our borough? We're entrepreneurial. We were like, well, we'd never thought about that before, but there's nothing stopping us. And then, boom, we launched. I think we spoke to them in August, and we launched our first event in December in that borough. So those are kind of things that we're seeing. We are in conversation with that council in a particular way, whether they could provide the money needed for us to scale our work. But ultimately, we have at least one corporate partner who share our vision and who support us. We've also partnered last year with a football club in West London.
Wow.
We're talking to another one. Actually, we've spoken to another one.
Can you reveal?
Yeah, so QPR Football Club, they're one of our partners.
Right.
We're also talking with the Chelsea Foundation.
Okay.
We spoke with them a few months ago. And it's really on my desk for us to literally get the ball rolling, but they're ready to speak with us. So those are some organizations that we've spoken with, and we're currently working on taking what we do and speaking to corporates.
Right.
Because we know for a fact that what we do works. And we know that what we do would support those businesses as well. And also what companies might not consider. And I think about this, because sometimes I think about stuff. I just think, what happens if that happens? What happens if this is, what happens? So I just considered if corporates think that youth violence is not their problem, the thing is, there's something called a broken glass effect. It's like if you're in an area where there's broken glass, everything is messy, and you've got some rubbish, you won't think twice to kind of throw it on the floor because everything is messy. But if you go to an area where it's clean, everything is properly ordered, you're
going to try and follow the norm.
you find a bin. It's the same thing societally. So what we see and what I see is if that's not dealt with, then the youth violence that happens in a particular part of a city, if I say like London, it's going to come to the quote unquote business parts of London. Then the headline will be office workers stabbed on their lunch break, or office workers attacked on the way to work. So we're saying if you don't see that now, that's where it's going. But you can transform it so it never gets there. So we're talking to corporates about, or we're going to start to talk to corporates about, well, we can work with you so that never happens. And actually we can also help you get access to incredible talent and grow your businesses.
Incredible talent. So, of course, connected to your strategy on training young entrepreneurs and young business people within the community. So, as a parting shot, what does success look like for you in the next 2 years?
That's a great question. That is a great question. We were recently in Washington, D.C. for a meeting with different people. So I'd love for us to have what we do in different parts of the world. There's another organization that I'm a part of that we put some seed funding towards taking young entrepreneurs, black entrepreneurs from the end, as is referred to in London, to Uganda.
Right.
So these are young entrepreneurs who went to Uganda and they were just lit up. There was just, I don't know, but there was noticeable was the absence of this thing called racism. Because just like everywhere, everyone looks like me and they're entrepreneurial and they're going for it. So they saw that. So we'd love to have different parts of our work on the continent. And I'd even also say something someone said earlier really inspired me because I've always thought about this. We'd love to have education establishments. All I can say is schools, but more than schools. But things that deal with how you think, that deal with purpose. Because the actual word
like
education,
financial literacy and
financial literacy, what's your purpose?
Do you recall when there used to be the Saturday schools?
No.
So in the UK, there used to be Saturday schools that were Pan-African driven, in which mathematics and so forth and sort of a history of the continent would have been told. And I suppose we don't have that anymore. But a lot of the people like Akala, for instance, they came through that tradition of school of thought. And the purpose of that was to give a diversity to sort of like the curriculum.
Yeah.
Because it's not actually being mechanized institutionally. And so maybe these are some things that you can consider as part of a package that offers entrepreneurial aspect, as well as the ideological, philosophical background that undergirds the kind of individual you want to create to contribute to society.
100%. That's our goal.
Well, that's all the time we have today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, thank you for joining us today at SAT Interviews here. Today I was with Ademola, and he is the CEO and founder of 1,000 Black Boys, an organization doing interesting stuff within the space of social enterprise. And not only are they doing training, not only are they engaging internationally, they're equally engaging globally within the context of how we better prepare, especially youth in the diaspora, for the world out there. Thank you so much for your time.
Amazing. Thank you very much.